I didn't plan the line. It just slipped out, cool as the ice sweating down my glass. Perfect. Then. Stop asking me for money. Her smirk cracked, her face drained like someone pulled the plug on. A bathtub. Before we dive in, if you've ever had to smile through a family dinner while a storm. Raged under the table, hit subscribe and tap the bell. Stories like this are a lifeline when you're walking that tightrope. Stick with me to the end. There's a twist that even I didn't see coming. It started with a Sunday that looked polite on the outside. Neutral tablecloth, candles lit too. Early, pretending to be cozy, the clink of flatware trying to pass for love. I was invited, summoned really because we should be together more. Translation, there was a new emergency, and they wanted me to be the solution that fit in a wallet. She orchestrated everything like always. Mom, she insisted on the title, glided between kitchen and dining room with a performance smile, the kind that darted past me on its way to everyone else. She perfected the art of talking around me. How, work dear, to someone else than a small aside to me. You still living, what do you call it independently? Like my life was a mispronounced word. Across from me, the spouse, calm, steady eyes, traced patterns on the napkin with a fingertip. We'd already agreed to the ground rules before we came. No rescuing, no wadding in with the lifeboat, no picking up checks that weren't ours. Boundaries, tight as a tourniquet, still I could feel their silent support like an anchor line tied under the table to my ankle. I needed it. Dinner marched along without a plot until the moment Mom asked for the salt. Harmless, right? The little shaker passed hand to hand, and in that transit, she slid in the first blade. Speaking of salt in wounds, she said lightly. Your brother's car just died. Shame, really, he needs help. The table went quiet in that staged way, where silence is a cue for me to step into the light. I didn't. She turned to me, smile dolled up with innocence. You've always been so fortunate. The word fortunate fluttered down like a napkin over a trap. It wasn't a compliment, it was an invoice. I glanced at my plate, at the roast that tasted like effort and calculation. I remembered the transfer last year, the emergency fund the year before, the whispered promise that this is the last time. Family, 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 3 syllables used like a skeleton key. My spouse cleared their throat, soft warning. Under the table, a gentle nudge to my shoe. Breathe, I did. In that inhale, I measured the room. Brother staring at his plate, jaw set. The other siblings scrolling under the table, pretending not to be present. A step-parent at the head. Chair distant, like a painting hung crooked. And Mom at the center of her constellation, pulling the orbits by gravity and guilt. Maybe we should talk about it after dinner, I offered, buying time. Not caving, not yet. She tilted her head. Why delay? We're all family here. The word clicked like a lock. Hear it. Was the script she wrote years ago. I knew my line even before I learned to speak. Pay, fix. Absorb, smile. I took a sip of water and watched the way her eyes followed the glass, waiting for acquiescence to come out of it. Underneath the table, my foot tapped the steady metronome of my pulse. I said, because if we're going to use the word family, let's define it. A few chairs creaked. The candles flickered, or maybe the air did. Mom's lips stretched into what could have been a grin, if there'd been any warmth in it. Oh. Darling, she said, pitched to be sweet and seen. You're not part of this family, not the way we are. There it was, bare, unvarnished. The thing she'd always said in softer ways. The sentence every favor had been embroidered around. Even the roast cooled on my plate. I lifted my glass, not water this time, and felt the chill kiss my fingers. Time slowed into a clean lane. I saw the shockwave before I spoke it. Perfect, I said, keeping my voice so light it floated. Then stop asking me for money. That's when the color leaked out of her face, like she'd been painted and it rained. The room exhaled. Someone put their fork down too hard. Brother flinched. The step-parent's throat worked around a word that never arrived. My spouse's foot pressed mine, steady, steady. If you're still with me, this is the moment where you either click away or you lean in. Lean in. And if you haven't yet, like this video and subscribe. Midway through, I'll give you a decision I had to make that changed everything, and it might change something for you too. Mom's smile reassembled itself with shaking hands. We don't need your money, she replied. Lie with lace on it. We just thought you'd want to contribute. To a family I'm not part of, I asked. To us, she said. We raised you. She meant housed, fed. She didn't mean safe. She never did. Brother finally looked up, eyes tight. My car isn't a big deal, he mumbled. It's fine. But it wasn't about the car. It never was. The step-parent spoke then, voice thin. Let's all calm down. Calm down. A command used to gloss over, to sand grief down to something that doesn't catch. On a sweater, I thought about all the times I'd been told to calm down when I was simply refusing to drown. I am calm, I said, and I was, which scared them more than any scene would have. Mom recovered faster than I expected, pivoting with a dancer's precision. If you're going to be ungrateful, she said, maybe you should leave. I thought about standing, about the dramatic scrape of chair legs, the door slamming, but leaving would have been the old script too. I'll leave, I said, right after I say one thing, and you're going to want to hear it. She folded her arms. This should be good. It's about Dad, I said. The air changed shape. Even the candles seemed to lean in. Mom's fingers tightened around the back of a chair until her knuckles shone. My spouse stopped breathing. My siblings finally looked at me properly, like I was a page they hadn't read. I hadn't planned to say that either, but secrets behave like mercury. They find their way out through the smallest cracks, and in that room, cracks were everywhere. Her name always came first in our house, but Dad's shadow did the quiet work of holding the walls up. When he died, Mom turned the house into a mausoleum for her version of him. No photos that contradicted it, no stories that complicated it. So when I said, it's about Dad, her eyes flashed warning, a lighthouse turning toward a ship it didn't want docking. You don't get to use him, she said too fast. I'm not using him, I replied. I'm returning him, the whole him. Brother shifted in his chair, the wood protesting. Can we not do this? We've never done this, I said. We've performed around it. My spouse's foot kept that steady press on mine. It's amazing how much calm can travel through the bones. There's a reason Dad left me the keys, I went on, not raising my voice. Not to the car, to the study, the little brass key with the ribbon. He gave it to me a month before he died. He said, if anyone needs help, go to the blue folder. If you need help, go to the red one. Brother's head raised a fraction. What blue folder? Mom stared at me so hard I could feel the pull of it, the demand to stop. He was confused at the end, she said. He didn't know what he was saying. Funny, I said softly, because what he left was not confused at all. I looked at my siblings, not at her. Blue folder had the house expenses, insurance schedules, a simple plan for emergencies, so no one would have to panic. The red folder had bank statements that did match the stories. The step-parent cleared their throat. This is inappropriate. You know what else is inappropriate? I asked. Calling me not family until a bill arrives. A beat, then another. If you've been cast as the fixer, you know this exact rhythm, the moment they decide whether to smear or listen. Before we go further, quick pause. If something in this is tugging at you, take a second to hit the like. It tells the algorithm there are more people who need to hear this, and honestly, it keeps me brave enough to keep telling it. I set my glass down. The transfers, I said, from Dad's account into a joint one with your name. On it, Mom. They started 3 years before he died. Small at first, then larger, not illegal. Exactly, but secret. Dad labeled them household. But they didn't go to the mortgage. They went to a fund called Family Projects. Mom laughed, bright and brittle. You're reading into numbers. I'm reading the memos, I said, and the dates. Family projects always aligned with someone's emergency, miraculously fixed by me. I paid, and then a few weeks later there'd be a project withdrawal that matched within 20 pounds. It wasn't that you needed me. It's that you needed me to think you needed me. Brother stared at her. Is this true? She lifted her chin. Your father and I made arrangements. That's marriage. That's choreography, I said. He told me, take the blue folder if they panic, take the red one if they pretend. My spouse took a breath, finally speaking, voice careful. What's your goal here? They looked at me, not the room. Because the way you walk out of here will write the next year of your life. I held that question a second longer than was comfortable. Then I said, clarity, then a choice. Choice, Mom echoed. I'm done being the silent guarantor, I said. If I'm not part of this family, then my wallet isn't a member either. If I am part of this family, then the rules change. I turned to Brother. That means if your car dies, you show us a budget, a plan, and I match whatever you save. Not because I'm a hero, because that's how grown families work. Brother swallowed. I could do that. The other sibling, phone finally face down, frowned. And what about me? Same offer, I said, but the days of surprise bombs at dinner are over. Mom's chair scraped as she stood. You think you're so righteous, your father would be ashamed. I felt the old hook catch for a second, the reflex to apologize to a ghost. Then I remembered the key in my hand the day he pressed it into my palm, the weight of it like a vote. He told me to stop the game, I said. He said he didn't teach me to swim so I'd be the family life raft. The step-parent's voice was smaller now. What if we reset, start new? Mom's eyes cut to them, then back to me. The calculation was visible. She couldn't hide it this close. You want terms, she asked. Fine, your terms. Not mine, I said. Ours, we put everything on the table. No more secrets if there's a family. Projects account, it becomes a real family fund with real rules. No guilt taxes. No emergency theatrics. Brother ran a hand over his face. This is a lot. It's a beginning, I said, or an ending we choose. Mom's voice softened to a practiced whisper. And if we choose neither? Then I walk, I said, and for once the door closes behind me and stays closed. The table had turned into a jury box. Nobody wanted to be the first to speak, but silence itself was a verdict. Mom stayed standing, her arms crossed so tightly it looked like she was holding herself together. Her smile was gone now, no mask, just a hard line. For the first time in my life, she looked smaller than me, like the queen had finally been knocked off her square. Bored. My brother's voice cracked the air. I knew something was off, he said. I didn't know it was you. Mom, I thought it was just bad luck. Cars, bills, school fees. I thought we were cursed. You weren't cursed, I said. You were leveraged. My other sibling spoke next, tapping their phone against the table like it was a drum. So all those times you said we had to go to them for help. They tilted their head at me. It was orchestrated. Mom's lips pressed into each other like a sealed envelope. No answer, which was an answer. Why? My brother demanded, his voice cracked on it. Why would you do that? She unfolded her arms, finally, and gestured sharply. Because you're ungrateful, both of you. All of you, she jabbed a finger toward me, had the money, and you needed the money. So I made sure you got what you needed. At the cost of him, the step-parent said quietly. Their voice carried, brittle but clear. At the cost of making him the villain, every time he said no. Mom spun on them. Don't you start. You've had no idea what it's like trying to hold this family together since he died. You just sit at the end of the table and play neutral referee. Don't pretend. You carried the weight. The step-parents' jaw tightened. For a second I thought they'd fold like always, but then they straightened. Maybe I didn't carry the weight because you never let anyone else touch it. You wanted to control it. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound. The control she'd wielded for years was slipping, bleeding out of her with every second of exposure. I leaned in, my voice steady. You told me once I wasn't part of this family. Do you know what that did to me? I carried that sentence into every room I walked into. I bent myself backwards, trying to earn a place that should have been mine without question. She flinched, tiny, but I saw it. I thought, I continued, that money was the price of admission, that every pound I handed over was proof I belonged, but all it did was prove you could pull the strings, and now the strings are cut. The silence that followed was different this time, not heavy, not suffocating, more like the oxygen had finally been let back in. My spouse reached for my hand under the table, squeezing once. You've said what needed saying. Brother rubbed at his eyes. I don't want your money, I want your time, I want you. His voice broke on the last word, and the room shook with it, more than with anything I had said. My other sibling leaned back, phone forgotten. Same. They didn't look at Mom when they said it. Mom's face hardened into something cold and brittle. So you're all against me now, is that it? No, I said. It's not against you, it's for us. For a family that doesn't feed on one person's. Silence. She scoffed. You'll regret this. You'll come crawling back when things fall apart. Maybe, I admitted. But if I do, it'll be because I chose to, not because you scripted it. I stood then, finally letting the chair scrape back, not as an escape, but as a mark. This is me. Leaving, but I'll be back if this table changes shape. Spouse stood with me, hand still in mine. My siblings didn't move, but their eyes followed me. In a way they hadn't in years. Before I turned for the door, I looked at Mom one last time. Dad didn't leave me the key by accident. He trusted me to know when to unlock the truth. Tonight was the night. The door clicked shut behind us, soft, final. And here's the thing. Walking away didn't feel like losing a family. It felt like finally giving them the chance to become one. If you've ever had to set a boundary that nearly broke you, remember this. Sometimes the breaking is what lets the light in. And if this story hit you, don't just watch and move on. Subscribe. There are more stories like this, real and raw, that might just help you find the strength for your own table, your own moment, your own truth. Because family isn't who asks, it's who stays when the asking stops. The night air outside hit me like a baptism, cold, clean, alive. My spouse and I didn't speak at first, we just walked, the gravel crunching under our shoes sounding louder than any voice. My chest burned with a strange mixture of grief and relief, like I'd finally let go of a stone I'd been carrying for decades, but couldn't stop rubbing at the raw place it left behind. Halfway to the car, my spouse squeezed my hand. You know what you just did, right? I ruined everything, I muttered. No. They stopped me, turned me so I'd face them under the yellow wash of the porch light. You didn't ruin anything. You broke the spell. The words hit harder than I expected. A spell. That's exactly what it had been all those years. Carefully woven incantation of guilt, obligation, and silence. But inside, the storm wasn't over. Through the closed door, I could still hear voices rising and falling. My siblings, my brother especially, were finally speaking without me being the shield. That, more than anything, told me I made the right call. We got into the car. The engine hummed to life, a comforting sound, something mechanical and predictable in a world that had been twisted by manipulation. As we pulled out, headlights catching the edge of the hedges, I thought about Dad again. The way he'd pressed that key into my hand. The way his eyes had softened, not hardened, when he said, one day you'll have to stop playing their game, and they'll hate you for it, but it's the only way they'll learn to love you. For real. He'd been right about the hate. Whether he'd be right about the love, I didn't know. The days that followed were quiet, but not peaceful. My phone lit up with texts that swung wildly between apologies and accusations. One moment my brother, I didn't know, I'm sorry. The next, Mom, ungrateful, selfish, you'll regret this. Then silence again, a silence heavy enough to bend time. A week later, a knock came at my door. I opened it to find my brother, eyes tired, hands shoved in his pockets. Behind him, his car sat at the curb, the hood clearly replaced but patched together with effort. "I fixed it myself," he said. "Took me forever, but I figured I should try." I smiled, small but genuine. "Good." He hesitated, then added, "I'm starting a budget. Thought maybe we could sit down. Not for money, just for advice." It wasn't much, but it was something. A seed where there used to be only weeds. Meanwhile, Mom's silence stretched on. No calls, no invitations, just a void where her demands used to live. It was almost scarier than her anger, like she was waiting for me to crawl back. But I didn't. Instead, I sat with the discomfort, the ache of not rushing to fix, the space that felt both terrifying and holy. My spouse reminded me daily, "You chose truth over performance, don't let guilt drag you back into costume." And then, one evening, another knock. Not my brother this time, not my sister. Sir. Mom stood on the doorstep, wrapped in a coat, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. No smirk. No crown. Just a woman who had lost control of her own kingdom. I didn't invite her in. I stepped outside instead, the cool night air between us. She didn't waste time. "They don't talk to me anymore," she said. Her voice was flat, as though she was reciting facts she couldn't quite believe. "Your brother, your sister, they go around me. Now they come to you." I folded my arms, not in anger but in self-preservation. "That's their choice." Her eyes flashed, the old fire for just a second. Then it died. "You took them from me." "No," I said softly. "I gave them back to themselves." For a long moment, she just looked at me, like she was measuring whether to beg or attack. And then, in a voice I barely recognized, she whispered, "I don't know how to do this without control." I almost broke then. Almost. Because under all the armor I saw it, fear. The same fear she'd smothered us with. The fear that if she wasn't in control, she'd be nothing at all. "Then start by listening," I said. "Not to me, to them." She nodded once, stiff and shaky. Then she turned, walked back down the steps, and disappeared into the night. And I realized something. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors, locked until the person on the other side learns to knock instead of kick. That's what Dad wanted me to see. That's what I wanted to leave you with. If you've been listening this long, it means you know what it's like to carry the weight of silence. To feel like you're buying your way into love that should have been free. Don't sell yourself that cheaply. Hit subscribe, because the next story I tell might be the one that gives you the courage to finally draw your own line in the sand. And when you do, you'll find out something I never knew until now. The family you build through truth is stronger than the family you're told to endure through lies. And